This video is sponsored by Incogni. Star Wars under Disney may well be the most mismanaged major property of all time. The only other major property that comes close is Marvel, equally mismanaged under Disney and in the exact same way. But for now, let's stick to Star Wars, as more details emerge about all the chaos that went down behind the scenes. It's been half a decade since the end of the sequel trilogy, and now more and more information is coming to light, although what should have been the lead has been buried in a number of recent news stories, which we are about to get into here. Stories such as Adam Driver, who was robbed of a solo Star Wars movie, and George Lucas, who was robbed of his legacy because the fans were robbed of a franchise they used to love at the expense of the regular small-time Disney shareholder, like Mike the Mexican Iron Man, among thousands upon thousands of others. And on the topic of robbing, there is sadly a lot of that going around these days, and in the online sphere. You see, banks don't keep cash around anymore, so criminals had to evolve, and in that process, your data became their new currency. The data you leave behind whenever you order some goods or service, or even just sign up for a newsletter, is being resold by data brokers, and even major data breaches are ultimately about getting to your data, as that can be used to not just tailor ads, but at worst to commit scams, fraud, identity theft, or other illegal acts, like taking out loans in your name. Good news is, they can't harm you if they can't find you, and that's where Incogni, this video sponsor, comes into the picture. They not only protect your privacy by actively reaching out and demanding these data brokers remove anything they have on you in a fully automated process. With their custom removals feature, they also reach out to any website you point out where your data already is exposed and do the same there. There are a number of other parties of various repute in the personal data removal space, yet Incogni is the first and only to receive independent third-party verification by Deloitte for actually removing personal data from hundreds of data broker sites and private databases, sending regular follow-ups and tracking real confirmation responses. All you have to do is create an account, grant Incogni the right to work on your behalf, choose your plan, and kick back and relax while they do the work for you, keeping you up to date with the progress every step of the way. And since this video is sponsored by Incogni, we naturally have a deal for you. Use our code MIDNIGHT at the link in the description, and you'll get 60% off an annual Incogni plan. So head down to the description and get your data protected now. With that, let's get back to the news of today. This comes to us from Deadline Hollywood, whose October 20th piece, Adam Driver says Disney shut down Ben Solo's Star Wars sequel film despite Lucasfilm saying they loved the idea, kind of buries the lead. The piece proper reads, Adam Driver was not done with the Star Wars universe and pitched Lucasfilm and Disney a spin-off that would have been a direct sequel to 2019's The Rise of Skywalker. Driver took on the role of Ben Solo for the Star Wars sequel trilogy, playing the son of Han Solo and Leia Organa and the grandson of Anakin Skywalker, best known as Darth Vader. As you may know, Ben Solo turns into the villain Kylo Ren, who has a redemption arc and apparently dies at the end of The Rise of Skywalker. However, Driver felt his character had unfinished business and thought of an idea for a sequel film. I always was interested in doing another Star Wars, Driver said in an interview with AP. I had been talking about doing another since 2021. Kathleen Kennedy had reached out. I always said, with a great director and a great story, I'd be there in a second. I loved that character and loved playing him. He evidently did, so much so that he took it upon himself to will that movie into existence. The story continues. Driver detailed a concept for the film, which Steven Soderbergh wrote the script for, which the actor said was one of the coolest scripts I had ever been part of, and he added an expletive to illustrate just how cool it was. Here it should be noted that whenever an actor is actively trying to will a movie into existence, they will always talk it up as one of the coolest scripts they've ever been part of. And more often than not, that is related to them having the most screen time in it. Others might disagree on the relative coolness of that script. Either way, he continued, we presented the script to Lucasfilm. They loved the idea. They totally understood our angle and why we were doing it, Driver said. Please note that when Driver says they in this context, that would be the royal they, for he is referring to Queen Kathy, i.e. Kathleen Kennedy, the undisputed monarch of Lucasfilm. Kathleen Kennedy loved it. Don't forget though that she also loved The Acolyte, but she hated Gina Carano and where Jon Favreau was taking things with The Mandalorian, enough that she fired her and derailed those plans. Alas, as Iger has made clear in the past, when it comes to Star Wars on the big screen, the buck stops with him. Kennedy is free to further destroy the brand on streaming, and Lord knows she has done just that. But she can't do anything on the big screen without Iger signing off on it. To it, the write-up continues, we took it to Bob Iger and Alan Bergman and they said no. They didn't see how Ben Solo was alive, and that was that. Actually, that is a really lame excuse, and I'll get back to why momentarily, but let's finish the story as we have more to go through here. The film was tentatively titled The Hunt for Ben Solo, with Driver adding, but it is no more, so I can finally talk about it. In a statement to AP, would-be director Steven Soderbergh said, I really enjoyed making the movie in my head. I'm just sorry the fans won't get to see it. Okay, so let's break this down. The bigger story here isn't that Adam Driver wanted a Solo movie which didn't happen, but that Kathleen Kennedy was pushing for a sequel to the sequel trilogy with a script and a highly acclaimed director ready to go, and Iger still chose not to greenlight it. And this was before any Rey movie was ever announced. The reason provided that Kylo Ren was already dead is sheer bullcrap. Oh, I don't doubt that that was what the powers that be told Adam Driver to make him go away, and he may very well believe that to be the real reason. So I'm not accusing him of lying or anything. I'm simply stating that that is a convenient excuse to mask the real reason why they didn't proceed. If the higher-ups genuinely believed there was more money to be collected, the focal character being dead would have been but a minor inconvenience to overcome. Case in point, when CBS figured that fans were a little bit dismayed with the Dexter Revival Limited series New Blood, for ending with him being explicitly killed off by way of being shot straight in the heart, and there was demand for yet another limited revival series. They had no problem coming up with some BS reason why he survived in Dexter Resurrection. Fans were only too happy to look through the fingers at the plausibility of the reason given and instead just enjoy the ride, so much so that Season 2 of Resurrection has been announced, thereby upgrading it from a limited revival series to a regular ongoing series. Point is, death does not have to be the end, and Iger knows this. I mean, he okayed bringing back Emperor Palpatine for Rise of Skywalker, though I suspect that movie might bring us closer to the real reason why this Kylo Ren Solo movie never happened. The sequel trilogy killed Star Wars. We and our peers in this corner of the interwebs have argued this for years. The defenders of those movies have all hid behind the excuse that they all crossed the billion-dollar threshold at the box office. But coming from a background in banking and finance, I like to look at trends, and few trends have been as clear as the box office for the sequel trilogy, with the first installment making more than $2 billion, and the final barely limping past $1 billion, meaning half the audience had checked out along the way. If things had gone well, if all the diversity, equity, and inclusion really had increased the audience like Kennedy reportedly claimed that it would, The Force Awakens should have been the low watermark, not the high. Recently, Forbes did a piece breaking down the profitability of the Star Wars movies. A piece which says pretty much the same thing that I just did, only their metric was net earnings rather than gross box office revenue. And that, if anything, shows the trend I described even clearer, as The Force Awakens earned Disney $500 million, while The Rise of Skywalker earned less than $50 million, so not even a tenth of that. However guilty Iger may be in the sequel trilogy taking on the form that it did, he has seemingly rebuffed all of Kathleen Kennedy's attempts at continuing beyond it. Because all the projects that Kennedy have announced on her own accord in the years since, and with great fanfare, have all fallen apart, one way or the other. All except the Star Killer project with Ryan Gosling, currently in production, which at first glance does not appear to be a direct continuation from the sequel trilogy. This demonstrates that while Iger has not had the strength to actually get rid of Kennedy and fix Star Wars, he, if nothing else, has blocked her attempts at putting more movies which would have solidified her vision for Star Wars on the big screen. But Iger keeping her there without actually supporting her is an outside hallmark of a very, very toxic work environment from which nothing good can come, and indeed nothing good has, to George Lucas' dismay. Some have held out hope that somehow, some way, George Lucas would return to the fold and set things right, but it would appear he has washed his hands of everything. The Wall Street Journal did a story on how Lucas is busy making a museum of mostly his own narrative art, and how he only reluctantly is putting any Star Wars there. The story is hidden behind a paywall, but Sci-Fi Gazette did a write-up on it, which reads, addressing the current state of the franchise and how he now views the world he created, Lucas said Disney took it over and they gave it their vision. That's what happens. Of course, I've moved past it. I mean, I got a life. I'm building a museum. A museum is harder than making movies. Be that as it may, Lucas makes it clear that he is done. He has moved on, and his complete and total lack of any congratulatory words whatsoever make it clear that he is far from happy with how his life work and legacy has been treated under Disney. There's irony to that, as in his book Ride of a Lifetime, Bob Iger bragged about how he convinced Lucas to sell Lucasfilm to Disney because Lucas himself didn't have any children that were willing or able to carry on his world and work after him. But Disney would ensure that his work and legacy would live on forever. Instead, Disney has chased the built-in fans away, in the process ensuring that Lucas would outlive what should have been his legacy. Nice going there. Kathleen Kennedy gets most of the blame for the destruction of Star Wars, and rightfully so, but what the recent story of the blocked Kylo Ren movie tells us is that Iger knew how bad things were. And while he evidently tried to mitigate any further brand damage, he did nothing to clean house and fix the brand damage that already was incurred, to the detriment of fans and Disney shareholders alike, as well as George Lucas himself. What do you think Iger could and should have done differently? And could a Kylo Ren movie have changed anything? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And before you go, remember to protect yourself and your data online with Incogni. Use our code MIDNIGHT at the link in the description, and you'll get 60% off an annual Incogni plan. So head down to the description and get your data protected now.